Hello and welcome to part 6 of the web scraping tutorial, and in this one we're going to add some icons and also save our file once we get our picture. First, let's look at our icons. Here we have our about, quit, and preferences, and as you notice they don't have any icons next to them, so they look kind of dull. We're also going to add a save menu item to our main menu as well. And so to do all this, let's start with our main menu. Go into our menu editor. Okay, and then under file we're going to select quit, and we want to put an item right up above that. So we'll just click this little plus button here, and we have created a new menu item. Excellent. Okay, so we don't actually have to be in here anymore, so I'm going to close that. Now let's go to our new menu item that we just created, which is menu item 1 by default. And so we're going to change the caption to say save, because that's going to be our save. And then let's go down here to name, and we'll call this menu item save. Okay, cool. So now we got our additional menu item. Now let's go ahead and add some icons to make this prettied up a little bit. So let's start with our save, and we want to select under bitmap here. So if we click in this field, before I do that, let me open up my folder where I created some icons here. So I used Inkscape and made my own icons. And I just kind of prefer doing that. That way you avoid any kind of legal issues. And so let me just copy those and paste those. I'll make a new tab here in my File Explorer. And then we'll go out to our apps folder and then into CT projects. Okay, and in our Pick Scraper project folder, we're going to create another folder. It's going to be we're going to call it resources, and you can really call it anything you want, but resources is for me the most logical way to go. Okay, and paste those in. I suppose that could be a tutorial on its own, is creating icons in Inkscape. Maybe I'll think about that in the future. Okay, so let's go ahead and load a bitmap for our save menu item. So I'll just pop over here, select the little loader there, and we're going to go into resources. This is our Pick Scraper project folder, resources, and we'll hit save. So we'll do the same thing for our quit menu item, and we'll select close for quit. Okay, so now we got save and quit showing icons. Nice. So now our preferences, so that would be menu item prefs. We'll hit the bitmap button over here, load, prefs, open. Okay, and then finally our about icon, which is there. So let's hit menu item about, load, and select about PNG, and OK. Cool. So that should take care of our icons in our menu here. So the main menu should be prettied up now. Let's take a look at it. See how that looks. Ah yes, much nicer. Okay, that looks prettier. That's kind of what a main menu should look like. Excellent. Okay, there's our about box. We'll pretty that up too in future, maybe in our next video. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and add a quick event to our save menu item. So just click on that, and it'll automatically create our menu item save click event right here. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is we want to save, and we want to save it to a particular location and give it a file name. So let's put a variable in here, a var section, and then we need some way to get our file name. So first of all, let's create a variable called file name. That's going to be a string that we're going to put our file name into, and then another one called URL, and that'll be a string variable. And the reason I have URL here is, let me just launch this real quick and I will show you. We got to pull that URL, and so when we hit get random pick here, you see how it shows the URL of the picture? That's actually the actual picture URL that's displaying there in the status bar. Actually, I would kind of like the URL that we're pulling initially, which is URL that we got on the first page. So let's change that. This is going to be for our reference, and we're going to use the URL to pull our file name out of. So see here where you see status bar, panel items, blah blah, text equals URL. That's what displays first, and then after we go to our next page and we pull out the picture to load into our image, we get URL2, which is what you're seeing now. So let's change that back to URL, and we can comment this one out because we don't need it in there twice. So that way it's going to show the original URL, and then that will allow us to use that URL to extract what we need for our file name. That'll make more sense in a second if you're not really following there. So we'll launch this again. Now if we grab a random pick, you can see down here in our console and in our status bar the original URL here. So here, the last part there after photos, you have y6f dash blah blah blah, and that is the file name without the .jpg extension. So we're going to extract that part of it and use it as a default file name. That's the part that we want to get. So in order to do that, we're going to need to split our string into sections, and we're going to use the slashes in this URL as our delimiter. So in order to do that, we're going to create another variable, and we're going to call this one sections. And this will be a t-string array, because when you split a string, it's going to put it in an array. So now let's go ahead and initialize our URL variable, and that's going to equal what's in our status bar, because that URL is showing up in our status bar. So URL equals status bar 1 dot panels dot items 1 dot text. Okay, so now it's going to pull the URL, the string, out of our status bar and load it into URL. Now sections, which is our string array, is going to be assigned to, we're going to take URL dot split, and we're going to split it using the slash, in quotes of course, single quotes, as our delimiter. So now we're going to have 5 different sections here. So now we're going to say file name will be sections, and then we need to find the element in the array, the last element there in this string. So this is our first one, so that would be 0, then 1, then 2, 3, and 4. So the fourth, actually it's the 5th item in our array, but we start with 0, so it's 4. So that should pull out the file name for us. Okay, and we need to add an extension on here too. So it's going to be blah 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 .jpg. So we don't want to forget that, otherwise, you know, that's not going to work well when it saves. Okay, so now let's put a check in here. If file name equals .jpg, then, and what this is if our URL is empty, then all we're going to see is .jpg because there won't be any string in front of it. So if our URL is empty, then show message, we're going to have a pop-up message here. And let's have it say something like no pic found. And then let's close that in quote, and then add a line break. So we'll put a new line in our little message dialog. So S line break is the variable, which covers all the operating systems. And then again in quotes, grab a picture first and try again. There we go. Okay, and then exit out of the function, because if nothing's found, if we didn't grab a picture first, then we just want it to quit right then and there. Okay, and then on to our next one. But first, let's give it a quick smoke test and see how it's going so far. So right now, I'm not going to grab a pic, I'm just going to hit this directly. And there's our message, no pic found. Grab a picture first and then try again. So what it wants us to do is hit that grab a random pic button and actually grab a picture. So that kind of protects us when you hit save and there's nothing there. So onward and upward. So what we want to do now is create a dialog. So let's go over here and click the T-Save dialog button. We're going to add that right here. And this is going to be the component that opens up a save dialog when we hit that save menu. And so in order to do that, and while I'm doing, let me create also a label here, and then we'll come back to the dialog. And this label is going to be a label that says something like, you know, save completed or successfully saved picture or whatever. So I'm going to just anchor that to our button on the left side, so that way it kind of stays uniform across different resolutions and computers. And let's go ahead and anchor that to the top too, so it's always, so it never looks funny. Then we'll hit this bottom button and that'll put it underneath there. And then let's push it down maybe 12. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, that'll work. And now let's go down to our font properties and just open that little thingy. And let's change the color. Let's make that maybe green, since it's going to be a success kind of message. So we'll make that green, and then let's make that bold as well. So let's just click on our style drop down and check bold, FS bold. FS means font style. Okay, cool. And then let's name this label so we can identify it. So we'll call it label, maybe save. Yeah, that should work. Label saved with a D. That's even better. Okay. And auto size is true. I just want to make sure that was true, because auto sizing is important for it to look proper across different computers. So cool, now that we got our save dialog and our success label, I think we can go ahead and jump back into our console. But first, you know what? I don't want that label to stay there all the time, so let's put a timer in here. So that's under System, and we'll pop that right. These timers and save dialogues can really be anywhere. I'm just putting them up there because they're nice and tidy. What this timer is going to do is it's going to turn off our label, just kind of make it blank after maybe 5 or 10 seconds. And I'll show you how that works right now, right after we enable the save dialog. So first, to get that save dialog going, we're going to call save dialog 1 dot file name is, and now we want to, this is going to set our file name. So get user directory is the default user directory for your operating system. And then I think every operating, all the 3 major ones anyways, have pictures underneath their user directory, which in Windows would probably be under documents. So get user directory plus pictures slash, and then plus, and then our file name. So remember, file name is going to be what we're pulling out of our URL that we did before. So now when we open our save dialog, it should take us directly to our pictures directory, and then have the file name there as the default file name for that picture. Now let's put a check in here, or if save dialog.execute, save dialog1.execute. So what it's saying is if this save dialog opens successfully, then, and then begin and end. And now we want to put our code in here for what to do once this dialog opens. And we want to load this guy, our string stream. That's, if you remember right, our string stream, new URLs, is what loads into the actual picture component itself. So that's how we're seeing our image, is through that new URLs string stream. The problem is this new URLs is local to just this function or procedure. So let's take that out of this procedure, and we're going to make this a global variable. This variable is going to be accessible to all the functions and procedures. So let's go up here to the top of our source code, and right here in our var section, which is underneath public, our public and private declarations, and then we have var here where we had tform1. Right underneath that is where we want to paste it. Okay, and now let's come back down here. So now we can use our string stream and save that to our hard drive. And the way we're going to do that is by instantiating new URLs dot save to file. So we're telling it to save our new URL stream to this, and then where it's going to save it is save dialog1.file name, which will give us the full path and the file name. So that's how it's telling it where to save it to. Okay, now we want to use our timer. So right here, first of all, let's take our label and set that. So label, what was that called again? Label status? No. Yeah, let me take a look. I forgot. Okay, label saved. All right. So label saved dot caption equals, and then we'll give it some kind of success message like pick saved as colon and then a space, and now let's add save dialog1.file name to it. So it should say pick saved as, and then it should give the full path including the file name of your picture. So with luck that'll work. And I'm pretty confident it will. Okay, now we want to enact our timer here. So we'll click our on timer click event, and as you see, it created it automatically right underneath our procedure where we left off. So now we're going to call timer 1 and we're going to enable it. Actually, we want to set the interval first, not enable it. So our interval is in milliseconds, so I'm going to put 10,000 milliseconds. That means 10 seconds. So for 10 seconds you want to use 10,000. And now we're going to enable our timer. So what this is telling us is the timer is going to run for 10 seconds, and then when we set timer.1.enabled to true, then that's turning the timer on. And so the timer is going to be turned on for 10 seconds. And so during that 10 seconds, we are going to go down here into our timer 1 timer click event now. And we're going to say timer1.enabled equals false, because once it gets into here after 10 seconds, then we want to turn off our timer. And then we want to take our label saved, there we go, dot caption, and we want to make that blank. Okay, so what we going on up here, or have going on up here, is it pulls our file name, and then it's going to set our caption to picture saved as blah blah blah. It's going to show for 10 seconds, and then after that it's going to kick in the timer event and turn the timer back off, and then clear our label back out. So let's see if that works. And no picture found. That's good. Let's grab this. And now once a picture loads, let's go ahead and try saving it. And if it works, then it should save it to our hard drive. Yeah, that's a pretty cool picture. Okay, so let's go up and hit save. And as you can see, it went into our pictures folder by default, and there's our file name by default. So let's hit save, and there's our success message saved as our path and then our file name. And that should disappear once it hits 10 seconds. And it did, so that worked beautifully. Excellent. So let's grab another picture, because there's something else I want to just show you real quick. It's kind of common sense, but yeah, just so you know. Okay, we have another picture, girl on a wall there. Let's hit save, and you can change this file name here. It is whatever you want, like girl on wall. And when you hit save, it's also going to be reflected in our success message. So as you can see, girlonwall.jpg. And so I just wanted to show you that just to be thorough. Let's go in our pictures folder and take a look at it. Okay, here we go, and there's our girl on wall and our first picture that we downloaded. So let's open that up, and there it is, and that's a very high-res picture. If I go here and just expand it to its full 100% size, you can see that that's really big. It's like 4,000 by something, 6,000 pixels, give or take. But it's a huge high-res pic. And so that should cover it for this tutorial. And in our next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and add some embellishments, you know, like maybe, some categories, and maybe multiple saves where you can save a whole page. So we'll see you then. And remember, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, hit that like button, and hit subscribe. And I would truly appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.